Drop a like and do share. Leave your comments and do not forget to subscribe for more videos.
Hello students, my name is Diyati Said and thanks for watching Edupedia Word videos. My topic for the presentation is first section of the chapter Mineral Nutrition students. Okay. As we know, the basic need of all living organisms are essentially the same. They require macromolecules such as carbohydrate, protein, fat, mineral and water for their growth and development. But this chapter, that is mineral nutrition, it focuses mainly on inorganic plant nutrition students, wherein you will study the methods to identify elements essential to growth and development of plant and criteria for establishing the essentiality. Okay, essentiality of these inorganic molecules. Okay, so you will study the role of the essential elements, their major deficiency symptoms and their mechanism of absorption of these essential elements in this chapter. Okay, and this chapter also introduces you briefly to the significance and the mechanism of biological nitrogen fixation. So let's proceed towards our topic, that is your essential plant nutrients students. So what are essential plant elements or plant nutrients? Most of the minerals present in the soil, see this is the soil, okay, this is the plant, this is the sun, okay, so most of the minerals present in soil can enter plants through their roots. See, these are the roots. So most of the minerals present in the soil can enter plant through the roots. In fact, more than 60 elements of 105 discovered so far are found in different plants. Some plants species, they accumulate selenium, some others gold, while some plants growing near nuclear test sites take up radioactive strontium. So there are techniques that are able to detect the mineral even at a very low concentration. The question is whether all the diverse mineral elements present in the plant, for example gold and selenium as mentioned above, are really necessary for plants. How do we decide what is essential for plant and what is not? So what's the criteria for essentiality? So that we will study in detail, but for the time being just know that these are the primary nutrients N, P and K. Okay, phosphorus, potassium and nitrogen, these are the primary nutrients students, N, P, K. Okay, and secondary nutrients are Ca, Mg and S, that is your sulphur. Okay, now what are micronutrients students? Iron, Mn, manganese, zinc, Zn, Cu, that is your copper, molybdenum, that is Mo, B is represents boron and chlorine represents Cl, is represented by Cl. Okay, so these are the micronutrients. Micronutrients, they are 7 in number. And your secondary nutrients, they are 3 in number, that is calcium, magnesium and sulphur. And primary nutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Okay, so these are the essential mineral elements. Okay, as I told you that most of the mineral present in the soil can enter plant through roots. See, these are the roots. So the roots, they absorb these elements. Okay, mineral elements to be more precise. Okay, in fact more than 60 elements of 105 discovered so far are found in different plants students, because they can be absorbed from roots of the plant. Okay, See, these are the macro and the micronutrients. These are non-minerals. That is carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. These are non-mineral. Mineral are categorized into three categories: primary macro, secondary macro and micro. So primary macro are nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Secondary macro are calcium, magnesium and sulphur. And micro are boron, chlorine, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, silicon, sodium and zinc, students. Okay? So these are your micro. And your primary are NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. And secondary macro are calcium, magnesium and sulphur. And here these are your micronutrients. Okay. So students, mineral nutrition. Okay. So all organisms, they require macromolecules, as I told you, such as carbohydrate, protein, fat, etc. and water and mineral for their growth and development, as I told you. But this chapter, it will focus mainly on the inorganic plant nutrition, wherein you will study the methods to identify element essential to growth and development of plant and their criteria for establishing the essentiality. Okay. So what is hydroponics? It is a method to study the mineral requirement of plants. Okay. In 1860, Julius von Sachs, he was a prominent German botanist. He demonstrated for the first time that plants could be grown to maturity in a defined nutrient solution in complete absence of soil. So there was a German botanist who said that plants can be grown to maturity in a defined nutrient solution in complete absence of soil. That means soil is not necessary for the growth of a plant. This technique of growing plants in a nutrient solution is known as hydroponics. Okay, what it is called as hydroponics. So it is a technique of growing plant in a defined nutrient solution without soil. So this is the apparatus, or this is the typical setup for the nutrient culture solution. Okay, see, this is the cotton plant which is growing into this nutrient medium or nutrient solution. This is the funnel for adding water and the nutrients, and this is the aerating tube. You have to aerate it from time to time. Okay, and this is the nutrient solution which is filled in this setup. Okay, so this is your hydroponics. This is the technique of growing number of plants in a nutrient solution is called as hydroponics. Since then, a number of improvised methods have been employed to try and determine the mineral nutrition which is essential for plants, students. Okay, as I told you that this was demonstrated by Julius von Sachs. He was German botanist in the year 1860. The nutrient solution is aerated for optimum growth. Okay, so this is our hydroponic plant production, students. See, this is the nutrient solution. Okay, this is the zoom view of a plant growing in a nutrient medium. Hydroponics was first used to identify essential elements which are required for plant and their deficiency symptoms, students. In this, plant roots were immersed in nutrient solution. See, plant root were immersed. See, this is the plant root which is immersed in a nutrient solution, and an element was added, removed or given in varied concentration. Okay, so this is hydroponics which is used for commercial production of vegetable, that is tomato, seedless cucumber, lettuce, etc. Okay, So this is essential mineral element which we will study in detail. So there was a scientist Epstein, okay? He defined two rules for an element to be essential for plants growth. Okay? First, absence of particular element. The plant is unable to complete a normal life cycle, or the particular element is part of some essential plant metabolite or constituent. Okay? Now we will study about the Liebig's law. According to Liebig's law of minimum, there are 40 nutrients which are essential to plant, okay, which is essential for plant body. Nutrients like carbon, oxygen are obtained from air. Okay, please note it down. And other nutrients like water and minerals, they are obtained from soil. If in vitro, plant obtain nutrients from the growth media, they can be as follows, such as primary macronutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, that is N, P and K. K for potassium, P for phosphorus and N for nitrogen. So these are your primary macronutrients. And secondary macronutrients are calcium, sulphur and magnesium. And micronutrients are trace minerals which include boron, chlorine, iron, magnesium, copper, zinc, nickel and molybdenum. Okay? So this is your Liebig law of minimum. It states that growth is controlled not by the total originally applied to plant growth, where it was found that increasing the amount of plentiful nutrients did not increase plant growth. See, these are the nutrients: Cl, Fe, Mo, B, Zn, N, Cu, Mn, S. So these are your nutrients. Okay, only by increasing the amount of limiting nutrients which are most scarce in the relation to the need was the growth of the plant improved. Okay, I hope Liebig law of minimum is clear to you. Liebig law of minimum, there are 40 nutrients which are essential to plant. Okay, now essential mineral elements, as I told you, that more than 60 elements are found in different plants. Some plant species, they accumulate selenium, they accumulate gold, etc. And some plants growing near nuclear test sites, they take up radioactive strontium, as I told you. Okay? So there are techniques that can detect minerals even at a very low concentration, that is 10 to raise power minus 8 gram per ml. So the question is whether all diverse mineral elements present in a plant, for example gold, selenium, are really necessary for plants. Now question is, how do we decide what is essential for plants and what is not? So there is a criteria for essentiality. Okay. So this is the criteria for the essentiality of an element. An element must be needed for normal growth and reproduction. In absence of element, the plant do not complete their life cycle or set seeds. The requirement of an element must be specific. For example, that is, deficiency of an element cannot be met by another element. That means it cannot be replaceable by another element. In other words, deficiency of any one element cannot be met by supplying other element. The element must be directly involved in metabolism of the plant. So this is the criteria for the essentiality of an element. Okay? Only 17 elements are absolutely essential for plant growth and metabolism. But according to the Liebig's law of minimum, 14 elements are essential for plant growth and metabolism. Okay? So this is another criteria that is for the essentiality of an element, that an element is essential if it is required for normal growth and reproduction. Second, it cannot be replaced by any other element. That means the requirement of an element must be specific and non-replaceable by another element. In other words, deficiency of any one element cannot be met by supplying another element. Okay? So the element must be directly involved in the metabolism of plant. Okay? So based on the quantitative requirements, essential elements are of two types. First is your macronutrient and second is your micronutrient. As I told you that these are the non-minerals, carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And minerals are categorized into three categories: primary macro, secondary macro and micro. So primary macro are of three types: nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. And secondary macro are of three types: calcium, magnesium and sulphur. And micronutrients category is boron, chlorine, copper, iron, manganese, molybdenum, silicon, sodium and zinc. So these nine are your micronutrients, and three are secondary macro, that is calcium, magnesium and sulphur. And primary macro are nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Okay, so these are your macro and micronutrients based on the quantitative requirement. Okay. So macronutrients, they are generally present in plant tissue in large amount, as the name suggests, macro. That means it is present in plant tissue in large amount, in excess of 10 millimole kg inverse of dry matter. Okay, the macronutrients, they include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium and magnesium. Of these, as I told you, that carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, they are obtained from carbon dioxide and water, while others, they are absorbed from the soil as mineral nutrition. Okay, now what is micronutrient, students? Micronutrients, they are also known as trace elements. They are needed in very small amount, less than 10 millimole kg inverse of dry matter. These include iron, manganese, copper, molybdenum, zinc, boron, chlorine and nickel. Okay. In addition to these essential elements named above, there are some beneficial elements such as sodium, silicon, cobalt and selenium. They are required by higher plants. Okay. So these were the two categories based on the quantitative requirement. So macronutrients, they are absorbed from air such as oxygen, carbon and hydrogen. And micronutrients, they are absorbed from the soil are nitrogen, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, calcium and sulfur. And micronutrients, they are always absorbed from soil such as iron, boron, chlorine, manganese, zinc, copper, molybdenum and nickel, students. Okay. So these are the essential mineral elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium and magnesium. Okay. So these are the macronutrients which are present in plant tissue in large amount. As I told you, more than 10 millimole kg inverse of dry matter. Okay. They include carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, calcium and magnesium. Okay. Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, they are mainly obtained from carbon dioxide and H2O. And others such as nitrogen, to magnesium, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, sulphur, potassium, calcium and magnesium, they are absorbed from soil as mineral nutrition, students. So these are the macronutrients: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, form in which they are absorbed, and what are the roles and what are the deficiency symptoms. Okay, so carbon is mainly absorbed in carbon dioxide form. What's the role of carbon? It is a major component of organic compound. Presence defines organic. Okay, now what's the deficiency symptom of carbon? It is rarely limiting as a nutrient. No specific symptom is seen of carbon. Okay, now come to the hydrogen. Hydrogen is mainly absorbed in the form of your water. Okay, that is H2O. What's the role of hydrogen? It is a major component of organic compound. Okay, same. Deficiency symptom is same as that of carbon. No specific symptom is seen of hydrogen. Okay, now come to the oxygen. Oxygen is mainly absorbed in the form of water and oxygen. What's the role of oxygen? It is the major component of organic compound. It is also very rarely limiting, just like carbon and hydrogen, and no specific symptom is seen of oxygen, just like hydrogen and carbon. Now come to the nitrogen. Nitrogen is absorbed in the form of nitrate and ammonia ion. Okay, that is NO3 minus and NO4 minus. What's the role of nitrogen, students? Nitrogen is a part of amino acids, protein, nucleotides, nucleic acid, chlorophyll and coenzymes. What's the deficiency symptom of it? It forms chlorosis. Okay, in severe cases, leaves they turn yellow from green. They sometimes die, and some plants they turn purple as anthocyanin they accumulate in vacuoles. Okay, in case of nitrogen deficiency, and nutrient most likely to be deficient in soil. Okay, now come to other macronutrients such as potassium and calcium. Potassium is absorbed in the form of K plus. What's the role of potassium? It is involved in osmosis. It is involved in ionic balance. It is involved in opening and closing of stomata, students. And potassium is seen that it is the activator of enzymes which are necessary for the starch formation. Okay, so this is the main role of the potassium. And now what's the deficiency symptom? It makes the stem very weak. It makes the stem spindly, and older leaves are especially affected because of the potassium deficiency. It is seen that dead spots are formed on the dead tips of the leaves. Okay, and roots are more susceptible to disease. Okay, now come to the calcium, which is another macronutrient which is absorbed in the form of calcium 2 plus ion. Calcium role in plant development is that it is a component of middle lamella of cell wall. It is also involved as an enzyme cofactor. It is involved in membrane permeability and component of calmodulin. Okay, so which is a regulator of membrane and enzyme activity. Okay, now what's the deficiency symptom of calcium? Root and shoot tips they die because of the deficiency of calcium, and young leaves and shoots they are most affected. They die back at tips and margin first. Okay, so this is the main deficiency symptom of calcium. Now come to another macronutrients such as phosphorus, magnesium and sulphur. Phosphorus is mainly absorbed as H2PO4 and HPO4 2 minus. It is a component of ATP and ADP. Okay, and it is also a component of nucleic acid such as DNA, RNA. Okay, and it is also a component of essential coenzyme phospholipids of membrane. Okay. Now, what are the deficiency symptoms which are seen because of the phosphorus? Phosphorus, because of the deficiency symptom of phosphorus, stunted growth of whole plant is seen. Dark green color, anthocyanin, they accumulate in the vacuole, giving the purple tinge to the leaves. Students, please note that whenever anthocyanin accumulate in the vacuole of a cell, it gives purple color to the leaves. And when purple color tinge appears, that shows that that plant is of deficient of phosphorus. Okay, so this is the second most likely nutrient to be deficient in soil. Now come to the magnesium. Magnesium is absorbed in the form of magnesium ion, that is Mg2+. Now what's the role of this magnesium? As I told you that it's a center of chlorophyll molecule. It is the activator of many enzymes. And now what's the deficiency symptom of magnesium? Leaf tips and margin, they turn upward on mostly older leaves. Chlorosis is also seen in magnesium deficient plants. Mottling and some dead spots and reddish color of leaf is also seen in magnesium deficient plants. Now come to the sulphur, which is another most important macronutrient, which is absorbed in the form of sulfate ion, that is SO4 2-. Now what's the role of sulphur? Sulphur is a component of some amino acids, proteins, and coenzyme A can be absorbed through stomata as a gaseous sulfur dioxide. And what's the deficiency symptom of sulfur? Young leaves with chlorosis between the veins. Sulfur is rarely limiting. Okay, so this was all about the macronutrient. Okay, now in my next section of the presentation we will discuss about the micronutrients. Micronutrients are also called as trace elements, students. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Edipedia Word videos. Thank you.